All right. Look at my hair. What's up? It's Inauguration Day. The inauguration of Joe Biden. Donald Trump has left the building on his way to Florida. The actual festivities. So I'm going to be streaming this here. Let me put this to the side. 1 second. The actual festivities starting around, whoa, double chat. Hold up. There we go. Starting around 11:15 is what I'm hearing. So that's when all the fun stuff, I guess, begins. But until we get there, I did plan several little links here just to discuss. Also, I'll take chats, of course, as well. That's going to be a major theme on this stream. I'm not sure how long we're going for. I guess however long this thing lasts. But Andrew sends a super chat in saying, I'm happy that Trump is leaving, but now I'm sad that Biden is out of all people, is going to be the new president. Yeah. That's kind of that's the feeling of anyone rational right now. Is awesome that Trump is gone. Fantastic. But how excited can you really be about Joe Biden? Now, with that said, there are some executive orders, day one, that look fairly solid. If I can bring up that list. Here we go. So again, just a reminder, the actual speeches and, the actual event doesn't begin till around 11:15. I'm going to tweet this out because I forgot to tweet out that I'm doing this. Just a minute. And then we'll get to some executive orders that Biden has planned. Actually, before I even get there, I'll show the video of Donald Trump leaving. All right. Tweeted out. Also, I'll be jumping between CBC's coverage, which is the Canadian network, and PBS. They're public broadcasters, so I shouldn't have any issues streaming their version of the events. But before I get to some executive orders, how about Trump leaving the White House? Actually, let me find a better link. There we go. Wonderful. There's not much to see here. Just Trump walking to the helicopter. Does a little wave. Goodbye. Now, what I find interesting is that he still has the nuclear codes. he has the codes until 11:59. That said, I can't imagine anything's going to happen, but just worth mentioning. Now, of course, this event, the public not allowed to attend. Everyone here is friends, family, Congress, lawmakers, because of COVID, obviously, and also because of the potential threats that may have occurred had a massive amount of people been on the Capitol just a couple weeks after another massive crowd of people tried to storm the Capitol. Probably best that not many people are going to be here. I really don't expect anything to happen. They have 25,000 Army National Guard members here in and around D.C., so I just don't. I'm not worried about any sort of event taking place, but this will largely be, ceremonial, probably kind of boring, but that's why I'm here, hopefully to add some commentary and answer your questions and discuss your comments. So, executive orders. Again, if you're coming in late, nothing should really start till about 11:15, so we got about 6 minutes. Let me go through right here some of the executive orders that Joe Biden has planned. Now, I'm not sure if this is necessarily an executive order, but launch 100 days masking challenge. So re-engage with the World Health Organization. Obviously restructure the government to better coordinate on COVID. So these are several COVID-related and public health-related issues. Extend the eviction and foreclosure moratorium. That is great. Extend student loan pause. Also great. I believe this is till September. Yes, until... So pause on interest and principal payments for direct federal loans until at least September 30th, 2021. Some climate change issues here. Rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement on climate change. Good. That is sort of the base level of what you should expect from Joe Biden. Roll back President Trump's environmental actions in order to protect public health and environment and restore science. So there were, I believe, over 100 environmental protections that Donald Trump reversed. So I'm not sure how many of those that Biden is able to address, but I imagine that will be a major piece of at least trying to get back to base level where Barack Obama was, which again is not enough, but it's obvious progress. Just going to check back every now and then to see what's going on. Okay. Actually, let me put this in a different window just in front of me, just so I know if anything happens. I will have it. Okay. What else here? So obviously this goes into a lot more detail. I'm not going to read all this, but basically Trump addressing issues that, or Biden addressing issues that Trump either reversed or didn't address at all. Here we go, Keystone XL. So I knew that was in here somewhere. So revoking, revising, or replacing additional executive orders, presidential proclamations, memoranda, and permits signed over the past 4 years that do not serve U.S. national interest, including revoking the presidential permit granted to the Keystone XL pipeline. So I covered this a couple days ago. There were some funny comments on that video of people saying, I'll believe it when I see it. Well, here it is. They're revoking the permit for Keystone XL. An obvious change from Donald Trump, who had approved the Keystone XL pipeline. Then it was held up in the court. There was a Supreme Court decision that held off on construction for it until 2021, which is where we are now. And now Biden putting the final nail in the coffin. Meanwhile, you have Justin Trudeau trying to fight Joe Biden on this late in the game. In fact, let me show you a quick clip. Again, we got about 3 minutes until things start happening here. So let me play this quick clip from Trudeau. You will never see, or you will not be able to find any video of Trudeau being this aggressive towards Donald Trump. So Trudeau was very scared of ever saying anything negative about Donald Trump, and now here Trudeau is talking about fighting Biden on Keystone XL. As Christo writes here, Trudeau already harder on Biden than he ever was on Trump.
People around the world will tomorrow, Canadians and people around the world will be watching the swearing in of President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. This moment will mark a new chapter in the incredible relationship between our two countries. I also want to address reports surrounding the Keystone XL project. Yesterday, I spoke with our ambassador, Kirsten Hillman. We've had a clear and consistent position supporting this project for years. Our government is making sure that Canada's views are heard and considered by the incoming administration at the highest levels.
Already he's trying to be fair, a lot of this could be performance. Trudeau, I guess in some sense, has to pretend to care about this pipeline. At the same time, though, he's shown no real willingness to actually take the climate crisis seriously, so there's no reason to give him the benefit of the doubt here. But regardless, his public statements are what matters. So he's trying to fight to keep the Keystone XL going. It's not going to happen. Biden's ending it. So at this point, it really is performance. Let's check in on the inauguration. So it looks like Kamala Harris is set to speak. Let's see what happens. Or not. All right. So I'm looking over here to see when stuff happens. Don't worry. We'll get back if anybody starts speaking. But I want to get back to some executive orders here. So advancing racial equity and supporting underserved communities. So I'm not going to read through all this, but here we go. Launch a whole of government initiative to advance racial equity. All right. Again, there's a lot of specifics here. Biden, there is a considerable difference, obviously, if it wasn't obvious already to some of you, between Trump leaving and Biden coming in. Now, You could say that it really is just a return to Obama era policy, and I think that's fair. But it's needed, especially during COVID. Especially you need somebody in power right now, and a team in power right now that is taking the pandemic seriously and is going to do what they can to reverse the complete destruction of Donald Trump. I mean, over 400,000 people dead from COVID-19. Obviously, millions more have it and will have long-term health effects because of it, which can potentially impact their health insurance as well. So, and on that point, Biden is not doing much of anything in terms of a different approach to healthcare right now. Still relying on COBRA, relying on vouchers or subsidies for insurance, for people to use for their insurance. So it's still essentially propping up the existing private healthcare system through his approach to healthcare. But that's to be expected. That isn't to say he doesn't deserve criticism. Of course, endlessly criticize him. But a lot of what is happening here is really just is exactly what you would expect. Preserve and fortify protections for dreamers. So bringing DACA back in, of course, massive change from Trump. Also reversing the Muslim ban. That's just being here somewhere. Another big change. Here it is. Reverse Muslim ban. All right. Stop border wall construction. Don't worry, no one's speaking yet. I'm taking a look. Deferred enforced departure for Liberians, presidential memorandum. All right. Let me see if I can get because there was a lot here, let me see if I can get somebody's breakdown. As I'm doing that,
we know he is a very emotional man. There is a lot in his head right now. There's a lot certainly in his heart. This man has been through so much. It's as if to hear him talk, his entire political career has led to this moment, and all the losses in his life have strengthened his heart for this moment. What he is facing as a U.S. president is unlike possibly what any other president has faced. The pandemic, a divided nation, an economy in trouble. It's a lot.
All right, as we're waiting for him to come out, let me just quickly go over some of these. So, executive orders for Biden on day one: stop border wall construction, end the Muslim travel ban, rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement and the Keystone XL pipeline, and revoke oil and gas development at national wildlife monuments. Count non-citizens in U.S. Census again, rejoin the World Health Organization, 100 days masking challenge, extend eviction and foreclosure moratoriums, continue pause on student loan payments until September 30th, defend Dreamers program for undocumented young Americans, change Trump's arrest priorities for immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, keep protections for a group of Liberians in the country, restructure federal government coordination to the COVID-19 pandemic, actions to advance racial equity through the federal government, strengthen workplace discrimination protections based on sexual orientation and gender identity, freezing last-minute Trump administration regulatory actions, and formulate executive branch ethics doctrine. There you go. Those are 17 executive orders that Biden is pushing forward on day one. I would say the ones that stand out to me are the ones on the environment. Rejoining Paris Climate, revoking the permit for Keystone XL pipeline, Those are clear deviations from Donald Trump. Let me turn this up now. Margaret Saddam, thank you for becoming a member. That one punk rap guy, girl, person, thank you for your super chat, says, as a transgender woman serving in our armed forces, I'm so damn excited for today. Thank you for all the coverage and work over the primary and general. Thank you. Los Nino says, now Mega Man is gone. It's time for Mr. Take Canada Back to shine. Really hope that guy won't become PM. Please welcome the Honorable Amy Klobuchar. I'm not sure who you're talking about specifically. QD says, I've heard that Trump didn't pardon Assange and Edward because of threats from Republicans convicting him if he did, but banning Lil Wayne, no problem.
Mr. President-elect,
I guess we'll listen to Klobuchar.
President-elect, members of Congress and the judicial branch, former presidents and first ladies, vice presidents, leaders from abroad, and a whole bunch of Bidens. America, welcome to the 59th presidential inauguration, where in just a few moments, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will take their solemn oaths. This ceremony is the culmination of 244 years of a democracy. It is the moment when leaders brought to this stage by the will of the people promise to be faithful to our Constitution,
I guess this is what Klobuchar got for backing
and defend
Biden.
it. It is the moment when they become, as
here.
we all should be, guardians of our country. Have we become too jaded, too accustomed to the ritual of the passing of the torch of democracy to truly appreciate what a blessing and a privilege it is to witness this moment? I think not.
Should I talk over her or
Two
like
weeks
what?
ago, when an angry, violent mob
I don't know how much we care about
staged an
Klobuchar.
insurrection and desecrated this temple of our democracy, it awakened us to our responsibilities as Americans. This is the day when our democracy picks itself up, brushes off the dust, and does what America always does: goes forward as a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This conveyance of a sacred trust between our leaders and our people takes place in front of this shining Capitol dome for a reason. When Abraham Lincoln was first
All right, I'm muted. Fantastic. So yes, I will talk over Klobuchar. So I like how the chat is a minute late, so I was just talking for a minute long, muted. As I was saying, so yes, answering the question from QD. Heard that Trump didn't pardon Assange and Edward because of threats from the GOP. Yeah, so I'm not sure why he didn't. I'm sure that played into it. But yes, Trump did not pardon Julian Assange, did not pardon Edward Snowden, did not pardon Reality Winner, did pardon Steve Bannon, Lil Wayne. I have no issue with him pardoning Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne is, I think he was facing 10 years for a weapons charge, which seems a little excessive to me. But it also explains potentially why Lil Wayne backed Donald Trump. He's had good politics in the past, Lil Wayne has, so I have to imagine he knew better than supporting Donald Trump, but he really did it just for just to potentially get a pardon, and he got one. But I guess we should listen to some of this. I don't know. Maybe she'll say something interesting, though not likely.
We'll know that anything and everything is possible. And in the end, that is America, our democracy, a country of so much good. And today, on these Capitol steps and before this glorious field of flags, we rededicate ourselves to its cause. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce to you the senator who has worked with me and so many others to make this ceremony possible, my friend and the chair of the Inaugural Committee, Missouri Senator Roy Blunt.
Yeah, he also pardoned Kodak Black. I don't have as strong of feelings about him. I don't know what his situation was.
Well, I should have
I know
known
he has
Senator Klobuchar.
he has said some dumb shit in the past, but that's unrelated to the whatever charge he was facing. So I don't know. I mean, him not pardoning Assange and Snowden, totally expected. If you thought he would, I think you're a little crazy. And also, I think there's a good chance that they're going to convict him anyways. I mean, why? Why should they? Why should they stick to their word if they had promised Trump that, hey, we're not going to convict you if you don't pardon Assange or Edward Snowden? Why would they stick to their word? Who cares? Just go ahead and convict him anyways. And it sounds like Mitch McConnell is leaning that way, though ultimately his party is kind of screwed either way. Trump may start his own party now. I got to look more into that. But let's get back to this.
And now, during pandemic, once again, all three branches of our government come together as the Constitution envisions. Once again, we renew our commitment to our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union. That theme for this inauguration, our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union, was announced by the Joint Committee before the election, with the belief that the United States can only fulfill its promise and set an example for others if we are always working to be better than we have been. The Constitution established that determined democracy with its first three words, declaring the people as the source of the government. The Articles of Confederation hadn't done that. The Magna Carta hadn't done that. Only the Constitution says the government exists because the people are the source of the reason it exists. They immediately followed those first three words with the words to form a more perfect union. The founders did not say to form a perfect union. They did not claim that in our new country nothing would need to be improved. Fortunately, they understood that always working to be better
told you this
would be the
would be boring.
hallmark of a great democracy.
Correct.
The freedoms we have today, the nation we have today, is not here just because it happened, and they aren't complete. A great democracy working through the successes and failures of our history, striving to be better than it had been. And we are more than we have been, and we are less than we hope to be. The assault on our Capitol at this very place just 2 weeks ago reminds us that a government designed to balance and check itself is both fragile and resilient. During the last year, the pandemic challenged our free and open society and called for extraordinary determination and sacrifice, and still challenges us today. Meeting that challenge head on have been and are healthcare workers, scientists, first responders, essential frontline workers, and so many others we depend on in so many ways. Today we come to this moment. People all over the world, as we're here, are watching and will watch what we do here. Our government comes together. The Congress and the courts join the transition of executive responsibility. One political party more pleased today and on every inaugural day than the other. But this is not a moment of division, it's a moment of unification. A new administration begins and brings with it a new beginning. And with that, our great national debate goes forward, and a determined democracy will continue to be essential in pursuit of a more perfect union and a better future for all Americans. What a privilege for me to join you today. Thank you. I'm pleased to call to the podium a longtime friend of the President-elect and his family, Father Leo O'Donovan, to lead us in an invocation. Please stand if you are able and remain standing for the national anthem and the pledge to our flag.
You better stand. If you're at home watching this, you better stand. I'm going to sit, though, but you can all stand. All right, are there any super chats? This is really boring. As predicted.
Gracious and merciful God, at this sacred time we come before you in need, indeed on our knees. But we come still more with hope and with our eyes raised anew to the vision of a more perfect union in our land, a union of all our citizens to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We are a people of many races, creeds, and colors, national backgrounds, cultures, and styles, now far more numerous and on land much vaster than when Archbishop John Carroll wrote his prayer for the inauguration of George Washington 232 years ago. Archbishop Carroll prayed that you, O Creator of all, would assist with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude the President of these United States, that his administration may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to your people. Today we confess our past failures to live according to our vision of equality, inclusion, and freedom for all. Yet we resolutely commit still more now to renewing the vision, to caring for one another in word and deed, especially the least fortunate among us, and so becoming a light for the world. There is a power in each and every one of us that lives by turning to every other one of us, a thrust of the Spirit to cherish and care and stand by others, and above all, those most in need. It is called love, and its path is to give ever more of itself. Today, it is called American patriotism, born not of power and privilege, but of care for the common good, with malice toward none and with charity for all. For our new president, we beg of you the wisdom Solomon sought when he knelt before you and prayed for an understanding heart so that I can govern your people and know the difference between right and wrong. We trust in the counsel of the letter of James. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Pope Francis has reminded us how important it is to dream together. By ourselves, he wrote, we risk seeing mirages, things that are not there. Dreams, on the other hand, are built together. Be with us, holy mystery of love, as we dream together. Help us under our new president to reconcile the people of our land.
Will they go to hell if I talk over this?
Restore our dream and invest it with peace.
Let me ask some questions.
And justice, and the joy that
QD
is
says,
the
I think you're right, because
overflow
even if it was possible, they
of love.
wouldn't convict him for the insurrection.
glory
I think
of
the
your
bomb
name,
threat
forever.
recently sealed the deal. That's the other part of it. Trump did not pardon anybody who was charged in the Capitol riots. So I think that's more likely where the GOP put pressure on him, possibly, because I imagine he absolutely wanted to pardon those people, but he didn't pardon any of them. Which, I mean, what kind of message does that send to his supporters? That he'll pardon Steve Bannon, who screwed you out of money. Ran a campaign to raise money to build a wall that he never was going to build. But he won't pardon his own supporters who tried to, or did, storm the Capitol in his name. Rob Deacon says, what are your predictions for what Bernie can do with his new position? Well, he's going to use a budget reconciliation to try and get $15 minimum wage passed. Actually, he has a... He has an op-ed out today on CNN and other outlets discussing that at the very least he's pushing for $15 minimum wage, which at this point, honestly, is too low. I mean, this is the point now where we got to start saying $20 an hour, because $15 an hour has been a discussion for like 10 years. So it's too low, but it's an improvement. But yeah, he'll use budget reconciliation to do what he can. So budget reconciliation means he only needs 51. They only need 51 votes to push certain spending items through. So at the very least, there was something else mentioned in his piece. If I can quickly pull up, if I saved it. Here it is. What's happening now? Now, depending what they sing, I may or may not have to mute this. I don't know what they're singing. Maybe we'll see. It's probably just the national anthem. Look at that mic. Gold mic and gold cable.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
All right. There you go. Definitely full of emotion. Some powerful pipes. All right, so as I was saying, Bernie in his op-ed saying he'll use budget reconciliation to push for $15 minimum wage, also to increase unemployment benefits and make them not taxable so that you actually get the full benefit.
Of the International Association
Let me see here.
Local 3920.
He's calling to guarantee at least 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave. I'm not sure if he can do that through budget reconciliation, but there's more here. Now what?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bernie's calling to require Medicare to pay the medical bills. But again, I'm not sure he can do that himself. In fact, I know he can't do that himself.
What you are all about
Klobuchar's back?
to be part of America is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first African American, our first Asian American, and our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, it is my great privilege to welcome to the inaugural stage the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
To relegate her accomplishments to the fact that she's the first Latina is honestly offensive. Sonia Sotomayor is actually a fantastic Supreme Court justice, but sure, let's focus on her identity.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
She pronounced her
that
name
I
wrong.
will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend.
It's Kamala, not Kamala.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
The duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, little pot. As I was saying, so yeah, I'll have to reread this Bernie Sanders op-ed, but he mentions a number of things that he would like to try and do through budget reconciliation. But
Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
The fabulous Lady Gaga with that dove of peace. You may be noticing they're wiping down the microphones and the
Please
podium.
welcome Jennifer Lopez to perform
Always,
This Land
this
Is
is-
Your Land,
COVID
and America
is
the
here
Beautiful,
always.
accompanied by members of the President's Own United States Marine Band.
I don't know if I can listen to this. I mean, nothing against this, but I do think potentially here some copyright issues if I allow J-Lo to sing. I don't know. I'm sure this song is fine, but whatever. I don't really care. So let's go through more important things. I'll have this on in the background though. Now, where was I? So $15 minimum wage, trying to get Medicare to cover healthcare bills, though not likely. Again, these are things that Bernie is going to try to do as the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, only needing 51 votes. That's what stands out to me right now. Trying to guarantee 12 weeks of paid family medical leave. I mean, a lot of this is what he's calling for. He's asking Joe Biden to do a lot of this stuff that he can't get done or can't push through reconciliation. But we'll see. Let me see how this is going.
Was made for you and me. As I went walking down that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. Oh, this land, oh, this land.
All right, as I pause this, let me play this clip. I saw this morning. Pretty funny. Newsmax doing a doing a serious textual analysis of what YMCA means to Trump.
There is no president more aware, Mark, of the optics than maybe John F. Kennedy, our first real television president. And it's interesting you bring up the Village People. So the song came out, YMCA, in 1978. Donald Trump was a young man in 1978, working in real estate in New York with his father. You know, the first line of that song is, "Young man, there's no need to feel down." President Trump had a hand in setting up the events of today, and I'm sure that was a song that he had some fun with back in the late 70s. And even though he will not be the president at noon Eastern today, there is no need to feel down. As he said, I'll be watching, I'll be listening, and I'll be back again in some form. Mark, any thoughts on what that might?
That stuff just cracks me up. The way they try to fill the air by doing an analysis of YMCA and what it means to Donald Trump is just a little absurd.
This land was made for you and...
All right, let me grab some more super chats here in front of me. LA says, what do you see in Biden's first 100 days? Well, at the beginning of the stream, I went through some of his executive orders, which I wish I kept the list in front of me, and I did not. But there were like 17 major ones, including rescinding or revoking the Keystone XL pipeline permit, rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, rejoining the World Health Organization, and working with them and the rest of the world on the pandemic response. Protecting Dreamers was another one. I'm going off memory here, but there was a number of them that more environmental protections that Trump had reversed. Trump reversed over 100 environmental protections over his time. So Biden's going to try and reverse a lot of that. Basically, a lot of what Biden is doing is it's kind of getting back to baseline Obama era policy. And then I would hope build on top of that. So we're going to see also Biden extended the protections when it came to extending moratoriums on rent, on student loan payments, and several other issues that were pending basically since the pandemic is still raging on. So definitely some great moves in Biden's executive orders list, but it's also really just the baseline when you look at where the country was before Trump came in.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr.
Thank
President.
Someone asks, yo, are we drinking yet? It's before noon. Let's see how long this goes. I mean, this is probably almost over at this point, at least in terms of anything important. Though, I mean, we got to hear Joe Biden speak. But once he speaks, I'm not sure what else there is to really wait for.
States. For an event where there are usually hundreds of thousands, it is oddly intimate
Ladies and
in
gentlemen,
this
please
era
be seated.
of COVID.
What's happening?
So the pause here is because I think we're all trying to figure out what is next on the program. It could be strange. It could be
Just
either
a moment
his
of silence.
speech,
What is this?
or it could be Garth Brooks. One of those two things are possible. Already Lady Gaga, J-Lo, those are two people who have been very close to Joe Biden. Interestingly enough, you heard from Father Leo Donovan.
All right, back to some chats as we wait to see what the hell's going on. Max Smart says platitude buffet. That's a great headline. In fact, I may borrow that for a future thumbnail. Platitude buffet. That's fantastic. Liam says Trump still has the nuclear launch codes. The chance he nukes Iran. I'm gonna say 1% chance. I don't think he really cares at this point. He's probably now in Florida chilling. Klobuchar's back. What's happening?
My great privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, Jr.
All right, we got to listen to this, obviously. Let's see what Biden has to say.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Leader McConnell, Vice President Pence, and my distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day. A day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken, the oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we, the people, who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far, but we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make health care secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all created equal, and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge, and unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America when we've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand, across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. And if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months.
Selfishness, celebrity.
Taught us a painful lesson.
That's what comes to mind for me.
There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next.
Can I keep my health care where I'm gouged?
But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, or rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And in my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We will honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis, America's role in the world. Any one of these would be enough to challenge us in profound ways. But the fact is, we face them all at once, presenting this nation with one of the gravest responsibilities we've had. Now we're going to be tested. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there is so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy. I'll defend America. And I'll give all of you, keep everything I do in your service, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together, we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. Democracy and hope, truth and justice did not die on our watch but thrived. That America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
All right. How about that? In some ways, it was a speech that a lot of people want to hear, striking a different tone. a moment of silence for people that have died from COVID, which according to
Ladies and
David Day in
please
here,
be seated.
the first time a U.S. president has asked for a single moment of reflection for the 400,000 lost to coronavirus. So,
ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Garth Brooks to perform Amazing Grace.
Garth Brooks. I grew up loving Garth Brooks. I still like Garth Brooks, but I like his old stuff. I like all kinds of music. Anyways, so in some ways it was exactly what a lot of people want to hear. But as, what's his name? Let me get your name because it was a great comment. Max Smart, as Max Smart would say, it was a platitude buffet. It was just very, it's what you expect from Joe Biden. No real mention of everybody who is going to be impacted, how their healthcare will be impacted by having COVID-19. Forget those that just died. Obviously, I mean, don't forget them, but in addition to those that just died, the people that have COVID and survived, they now have pre-existing conditions. That's going to impact their healthcare coverage because of this ridiculous for-profit system. So, of course, Joe Biden not supporting Medicare for all, not supporting single payer, is not going to bring up that fact of how his plan for healthcare to expand healthcare coverage is not adequate. Of course, people, the eviction crisis, people under mountains of debt. There is a lot that, if Joe Biden were to actually take an FDR style approach or a Bernie Sanders style approach, there is a lot that he could do, especially now with the votes that he has, having the House, having the Senate. There's a lot that he could get pushed through. But so far, at least through his executive orders, it really appears to be the bare minimum of just getting back to Obama era normal and erasing a lot of the issues that or problems that Trump created, like Trump overturning over 100 environmental protections. Biden is addressing a lot of that, taking coronavirus seriously, having a real plan, having a mask mandate, getting back into the Paris Climate Accord, rescinding Keystone XL, which Obama did before Trump brought it back. A number of issues where really it was just getting back to Obama era. It's getting back to Obama era normal, which is fine as a start, but what Biden does after that is really going to matter. And there was, of course, the focus on unity, something, a theme that Biden has had throughout throughout the primary, throughout the general election campaign. This discussion of unity. Now, there's nothing wrong with the word unity if you're talking about ensuring or working to unite the country through your own leadership and actually helping people, delivering that help to people. But the way that Biden means unity, when he says unity, he means appealing to conservatives. He doesn't mean appealing to progressives. He means appealing to conservatives, or even forget the word progressive conservative. He doesn't mean appealing to the vast majority of people. You look at polling on issues like single-payer healthcare, has a majority of support. You look on issues like raising the wealth tax or creating a wealth tax, majority of support. Issues like the dealing with climate change seriously, the Green New Deal, majority of support. So Biden doesn't mean unity in that sense. If he truly meant unity, what is Garth Brooks doing? Guy's running around. Is he okay?
Inaugurations are always extraordinary.
Okay, I thought he's just full of energy. I'm surprised he didn't go flying through the air like he used to do back in the 90s. Anyways, I'm dating myself here. But so he didn't. That's not what Biden means when he talks about unity. He's talking about appealing to conservatives. So this is where movement building, this is where unions, this is where progressive groups, this is where these groups come into place to create this pressure and momentum and maybe a march, a movement to do what they can to put pressure on government, and hopefully utilizing the power of people like Bernie Sanders and the squad that could use their power to help to create a sort of march on Washington for these various issues, or for, I should say, specific policy issues, so it's clear what they're marching for. They could use their power to do that. Let me just see what this is about.
Americans and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
That was good. That was good. One place where platitudes make sense in a poem like that. All right. Let me grab some more chats here. So yeah, I guess to finish my thoughts on Biden's speech. Yeah, it was just ultimately the main theme there was unity, and it's not so. I mean, it's clear that his unity simply means reaching to conservatives and not actually pushing to do anything bold, but I guess that remains to be seen, for sure. All right. Grab some chats here. Where was I? C-Star says, thank you for enduring this mind-numbing ceremony. No problem. Lee Levin says, gotta love LG's dress. Saving one cat at a time says, did you know the 12 weeks of unpaid leave available to parents in the U.S. has to be shared by two parents if they have the same employer? If they have the same employer. That's wild. In Canada, so right now I'm experiencing, well, not me, but my family is experiencing maternity leave because my partner's on 18 months leave. And I think she gets like 30% of her pay over that 18 months. She could have taken 12 months and got about half. I'm not taking any because I'm self-employed. It's harder for me to do so, and it's easy. I work from home anyway, so I don't really need to take any time off. But just to give you an idea of the comparison between the U.S. and Canada on paid leave, we have up to 18 months, and I guess you have 12 weeks of shared pay if both parents work at the same employer. Is that even true, though? I don't think it's even true. And I got to look more into how the American system actually operates, because my understanding is many places don't have any paid leave. Anyways, saving one cat at a time says, should have been Bernie. Don't break my heart with thoughts of what could have been. Yes, should have been Bernie for sure. Dylan Troyer says, the will of the people has been heard, been heeded, and prevailed. How and when? No one wanted Joe. We settled for him. Hardly democracy, frustrated. I hear you. Unfortunately, the American system, the way it works, the way primaries work, yep, that's how it played out. Adrian Thomas says, thoughts on Biden's stance on Keystone XL and how Canadian government is responding to that stance. Read articles on how Canadian government isn't the happiest. Yeah, I discussed this a bit earlier. Actually, I did a whole video on this a couple days ago. So if you want more of a breakdown on Keystone XL and Trudeau's thoughts on that, go watch that video that I did a couple days ago. But basically, Trudeau was still trying to, at least publicly pretending, or publicly doing so, trying to push Joe Biden to continue Keystone XL, but it's not happening. It's in one of Biden's day one moves. He's going to rescind the Keystone XL pipeline, so that's going to be dead. And in terms of the Canadian government, yeah, Trudeau wants to keep it. Trudeau is like neoliberal in every sense of the word when it comes to especially an issue like climate change, where he'll like his idea of climate change is, oh, we have to sustainably build new oil pipelines. Like, what? What are you talking about? If you're creating new fossil fuel infrastructure, you're not addressing the climate crisis seriously. You can't create a new oil pipeline sustainably. It's just it doesn't make any sense. It's essentially an oxymoron. You can't do it. So, but yeah, on this issue, Biden is to the left of Justin Trudeau. On healthcare, a little different. On healthcare, Canada in general, the Conservative Party is to the left of Joe Biden on healthcare. But on this issue, yeah, Biden is to the left of Trudeau. Lawn Gnome says, please sing it. I'm not going to sing, but you say, na 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 na. Actually, I guess I can sing this. Na 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 na, na 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 na, hey, 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 goodbye. There. That's as much singing as I will do. I assume that is about Trump, which, just to put a button on this, Trump is officially a private citizen. He is now vulnerable to criminal prosecution. Fantastic. Next chat here. Ryan Nowicki says, do you think Trump will be able to pull his reputation back together similar to how Bush has? Even Comey said Biden should consider pardoning Trump. Yeah, I did a video on that absurdity. I will say no. I don't think he'll be able to do it the way Bush did, for this main reason. Bush's public-facing persona was still very standard president. Trump's public-facing persona was adversarial, was always, openly racist, xenophobic. Not saying Bush wasn't, but in a different sense. So Bush, through policy, yes, definitely as bad, if not worse than Trump, especially when it comes to, the Iraq War as an obvious example. But Trump's public persona was so bad, so toxic, racist, horrible, full of hate, that he will not be able to pull his reputation back the way that Bush did. Now, is there going to be, is he going to be able to somewhat do so? Maybe. Time often can heal how people feel about certain issues or people. So there's always a potential that, yes, people aren't going to hate Trump as much in 5 years as they do, right now or a month ago. But that doesn't mean he's going to be able to bring his reputation back the way that Bush did. I don't think he'll be able to, simply because, as I said, of how Trump conducted himself publicly compared to George Bush. Javier Ramirez says, hello, David. Did you hear that the force the vote was a ploy to make the Justice Dems fail by the PPM, People's Party movement? Yeah. So, yeah, I saw those. There were screenshots from Slack. It's not clear who was writing those messages on Slack, but basically what was being said there was, hey, the only way that People's Party can be successful is if Justice Democrats fail. And I mean, the way they conducted themselves during the force the vote whole thing, like the idea that People's Party would be trying to help Democrats, just on the face of it, doesn't make any sense from their point of view. I don't know why they would even get into the discussion. So immediately, that puts a big question mark on that entire thing. Not saying the strategy itself was bad. I did a video supporting the idea of force the vote, but the way it was implemented, the tactic of it, of attacking the people you want to join you, what a ridiculous strategy. As I've discussed before, if you want someone to join you, say, join you in your new business or join you for whatever, you're going to join a march and you want your friends to join you, would you call them cowards and sellouts and losers and assholes? Like, is that how you're going to get those people on your side to join you in something? No. You're going to be persuasive. You're going to discuss why it's a good idea. You're not going to attack their character. And as you've seen, the approach when it came to Donald Trump, trying to get him to do something, trying to get him to pardon Julian Assange, trying to get him to push for $2,000 checks, the approach that many of these same people had, or one individual, I think it's obvious what I'm talking about, their approach there was to be kind to Trump, and which I agree with. If you want Trump if you want Trump to push the $2,000 checks, then you should be kind to him to do so, not call him an asshole, a sellout, a coward, and expect him to follow you. The approach was a lot different when it came to trying to convince Trump to do something than when trying to convince the squad to do something, which on the face of it, it obviously brings up questions of what was the motivation there. So even if you agree with the strategy, which I did, I thought it was a good idea, the tactic of trying to get those people on board from the leaders in that movement was completely insane and clearly did not work. So I'm not sure what People's Party movement or what their role exactly was in that. I guess we could speculate based on those Slack chats, but yeah, one thing's for sure. Obviously, if Justice Dems are successful, and so far they are being successful, getting people primaried, then it negates the reason for a People's Party. Not saying that there isn't a good reason for a third party. Sure, if you can build a successful third party challenge, sure, why not? I'm for that. But in the meantime, I mean, right now, clearly there is one strategy that is successful, that is Justice Democrats, and the third party thing just has not gone off the ground. That isn't to say to stop it or to call it a failure, but so far it has not been successful. So we'll see going forward, but I think the Just Democratic approach right now is the best approach, and you're already seeing very important leaders in the party like Lacey Clay, Elliot Engel, Joe Crowley get primaried out and replaced with progressive members of Congress, and I think that's clearly showing some progress. Finding my place here. WizPig Tactics says inauguration for the COVID Hunger Games elites. Harry Penergius, I'm sure I said your name wrong. But Harry says, common question, but how much do you think Bernie as budget chairman can or cannot affect Biden's policy direction? So I discussed a bit of this earlier. Bernie has a new op-ed on CNN and The Guardian as well. I think a few other places where he published it. But basically discussing what he will try to do as the chair of the Senate Budget Committee. But he can use budget reconciliation to only require 51 votes to pass bills. But the scope of that obviously is going to be limited, and you still have to get Joe Manchin on board, which is going to be, of course, a problem. But it does make it a little easier than requiring the 60 votes to get anything passed. So Bernie is absolutely going to do what he can to push things through. Whether or not he can get all Democrats on board in doing so remains to be seen, but he obviously has the arguments on his side. It's a pandemic. How can you not be delivering health care to people, using Medicare to come in and cover those costs? How could you not increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, which Joe Biden himself also supports, still supporting, is discussing it. So I think we are going to see some progress there. In terms of the COVID response, in terms of minimum wage, I don't think you're going to see Medicare cover anything, as Bernie has suggested. Biden's approach obviously is still relying on COBRA, relying on subsidizing health insurance companies. So yeah, Biden has that typical approach when it comes to healthcare, but everything else, I mean, a lot of it when it comes to pandemic spending, helping people, you're going to see, at the very least, a return to Obama era normal. But that clearly is not enough. But it is, in the current state of politics right now, that is an improvement over where the U.S. is currently. 10 Law Gnomes says, really looking forward to seeing what comes out from investigations and freedom of information requests with the Dems in the driver's seat now. Yes, I am also looking forward to what they're going to do now. Now that they have some power, look into, Ted Cruz, Hawley, Trump. At the very least, let's hope Trump faces some tax fraud charges. I mean, that's kind of the bare minimum for him. I'd be curious to see if Biden's DOJ tries to go after Trump at all. I feel like they're not going to. In a sign of unity. In a sign of unity, don't charge criminals. Somehow that makes sense to them. But when it comes to states, very possible that we will see something come out of that. But obviously, hard to know at this point. And at the very least, will they convict Trump in the Senate? I imagine, though, that's going to be starting soon. Will Mitch McConnell support convicting Trump? Meaning that, actually, there's some argument over whether or not they need 2 votes for this, a vote for conviction and a vote to ensure he can't run again. But regardless, are we going to see Mitch McConnell push to convict, allowing or opening the door for other Republicans to jump on board with conviction? I don't know. They are playing with they're kind of playing with fire there, because the majority of their base still supports Trump, still thinks Trump won the election. So if they have a public repudiation of Donald Trump and convict him and ensure that he can't run again, what's that going to do to the base of their party? Is the party going to just be okay with that, jump on board, or does that potentially open the door for maybe Trump to start a Patriot Party and take some of those support, take at least half that support from Republicans into his new Patriot Party? I don't know. But there's a lot that we simply don't know, but we can speculate endlessly. At the very least, I do hope he's held to account on something. Michael M., thank you for your super sticker. Much appreciated. All right. What's left here? Let me go through. I'm just going to let this play as I look through some of my links and maybe go through some issues or some links that I did not bring up earlier in regards to Trump and Biden, and then grab the rest of the super chats and then be on my merry way.
At several moments, I jotted down one when Biden said the dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. That's what it's all about here, right? At Black Lives Matter Plaza, at some points, the epicenter of the fight for racial equality here in the United States, where just a few steps away, President Trump, now former President Trump, cleared away peaceful protesters to stage a photo op just a few steps away with a Bible in front of a church. So people here remember that. It's very fresh in the minds of people here in D.C., and they cheered during the speech.
All right. So this came out of the Daily Poster. This is David Sirota's outlet. Biden lifts health care plan from insurance lobbyists. The incoming president's plan mimics an insurance industry letter instead of pushing a promised public option or Democratic legislation to expand Medicare. So Biden already appears to be backtracking on his own promise of a public option. I mean, this would be, if you're going to improve the healthcare system during a pandemic, would be the optimal time to do so. But I read this earlier. I have not memorized what's in here. But yeah, so the plan would subsidize COBRA. Actually, let me read this paragraph. So Biden's plan would shovel billions of dollars to private health insurers by providing subsidies for Americans to buy coverage through the Affordable Care Act, marketplaces. So this is what I was discussing earlier, that Biden's plan. So while Bernie's trying to push him to use Medicare to cover the cost of healthcare during the pandemic, Biden's plan, instead, shoving billions of dollars to private health insurers by providing subsidies for Americans to buy coverage through the Affordable Care Act, marketplaces, which are far more expensive than government healthcare programs and have at times been plagued by high rates of claim denials. The plan would also subsidize COBRA continuation coverage through September, allowing workers to keep their employer health insurance plans when they're laid off. Now, the cost of COBRA, my understanding is it's insane. COBRA is if you lose your job, but you still want to keep your health care coverage that you had with your position, that you can do that through COBRA. But the cost of your health care is, because you no longer work at that workplace, the cost of keeping your healthcare is insane. So that's one of the major issues with COBRA. And of course, you cannot rely on private health insurance to actually cover what you need without having some, co-pays, hidden fees. Definitely all Biden's doing here is propping up the existing for-profit system, while anybody that has any analysis of the American healthcare system and compares it to other countries, it's completely inadequate. I mean, inadequate is a nice way to put it. The American healthcare system exists to make money for insurance companies, insurance executives. That's it. That's why it exists. There is no reason at all for there to be a private insurance-based healthcare system. No reason. It does not bring costs down. Costs go up. It does not deliver healthcare well unless you are super wealthy. So there is absolutely no reason to continue propping up a for-profit healthcare system, but Biden will continue to do that, partly because of that's been his view on healthcare forever, and also major part of it being that takes health insurance money, and these are the people that are in his ear discussing healthcare. So any movement at all on even a public option for Joe Biden would be a massive shift for him, because based on his history, he is not at all open to changing the healthcare system whatsoever. Meanwhile, we'll have a speech full of platitudes, how we have to unite and come together and care for people. How are you showing that leadership, that care for people, when you still prop up a private health insurance system where 45,000 people a year die due to a lack of access to healthcare, 500,000 people a year go bankrupt over healthcare costs? Medical bankruptcy does not exist in Canada. Doesn't exist. But 500,000 people in the U.S. every year, and this is before COVID. Before COVID, 500,000 people a year going bankrupt over healthcare costs. And now, because of COVID, in addition to obviously increases in all these numbers in deaths, in bankruptcy, you're also, I mean, you're going to see a system here that is just, it's laid bare. The extent of damage that the healthcare system has created, that the American healthcare system has created, you can't deny it anymore. There's no, it's obvious. It's obvious based on the amount of debt that people are going to be in. It's obvious based on the death that we've seen. It's obvious based on the amount of people that are now going to have pre-existing conditions because they had COVID, and that's going to increase their healthcare costs because of this private insurance-based system. It is just completely insane. But, I mean, that's kind of the summary of what Biden's plan is. Obviously, he took some money in the process. So while Medicare for All could actually save the country up to $650 billion annually, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, Biden is now proposing some of the most costly and inefficient ways to expand health insurance coverage. The moves could still leave people exposed to substantial out-of-pocket costs from deductibles, copays, coinsurance that act as barriers to care. So yeah, check out the Daily Poster if you want to read through this. Just dailyposter.com. You will see it, and unfortunately, when it comes to healthcare, this is one issue where it's going to be a constant battle because of how much power these health insurance companies have. And when you have people like Richie Neal on the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee that takes the most money from healthcare insurance companies, even harder to get the idea of getting anything on healthcare, expanding coverage, Medicare for all, single payer. Impossible to get it passed with people like that in charge of many of these committees. All right. I'm not sure what this is about, but waving by. What else did I have here? All right. Some other stuff I may just say for a different video. But civil rights groups right now are saying hell no to creating new domestic terrorism charges that more centrist lawmakers want to see Biden enact. And those civil rights groups are joined by people like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, fighting to ensure that there aren't any new domestic terrorism charges because of the way that it can be used against the average citizen and impact civil liberties. So I may cover that in a separate video just to go deeper into that. And let's see what else here. I discussed Trump pardons earlier at the very beginning of the stream, but just to reiterate, no pardon for Assange, no pardon for Edward Snowden, no pardon for Reality Winner, pardon for Lil Wayne, which I'm in support of. He was facing 10 years for weapons charge, whatever. I like Lil Wayne. I know he backed Trump, but he did it, I think, clearly to get pardoned. 'Cause in the past, Lil Wayne has had a lot better politics than Donald Trump. So I think he was just using his power there to try to get a pardon, and it worked. Also pardoning, from my understanding, Steve Bannon, who defrauded millions of Trump supporters out of money in a ploy that he was going to build the border wall. Of course, was never going to do that. He was just taking in all this money from Trump supporters, and Trump pardoned him. So no pardons for anybody who stormed the Capitol in support of Trump, but pardons for Steve Bannon, who defrauded Trump supporters. Just so you Trump supporters out there understand what went on. That's exactly what happened. All right. Someone in the chat saying, last I heard Cobra was about $700 a month several years ago. Doesn't it depend on your plan? But yeah, I'm sure it's crazy, whatever it is. You know what I pay for healthcare every month? $0. Now, yes, I pay through my taxes, and we all pay through our taxes, but good. Like, I'm glad my money goes to covering for universal healthcare, so I never have to think about it, as opposed to going to, a military that has 10 times, that spends 10 times as much as any other country on defense. So it's all about priorities, where that money goes. All right. I think we're about done here. I'm not sure what else there really is to say, but let me grab some normie chats. QD says, David, how do I become a Canadian resident? I don't know. I know it's not easy, but look it up. Timothy says, love your hair. Thank you. Therese D says, Cobra is the full cost of your previous employer plan. Yeah, that's my understanding of it. So it changes depending on your plan with your employer. And because your plan is partly subsidized through your employer when you're working for that company, when you no longer work there, you got to pay for the full price of it. So, which is why Cobra, the idea that Cobra is somehow a benefit to people when it comes to healthcare is just completely nuts. Yeah, it allows you to keep your insurance plan for insane cost. If you move to a Medicare for all single payer system, guess what? You have complete freedom of choice when it comes to doctor, because everybody's on the same plan. There is no in-network, out-of-network. You can go to any walk-in clinic. Obviously, there has to be more of an investment into, rural healthcare and hospitals that historically have largely been ignored by the current system. But, the assumption with a single-payer plan is that there'd be more of an investment into community health services. And basically, you just would not have to think about the cost of healthcare. I never think about healthcare. I just had a baby. The cost of healthcare didn't enter my mind once, because I don't have to pay for anything. It's free at the point of use, and that is the big benefit with a single payer system, that your healthcare is always there. It's guaranteed to you. Maria says, do we know who will replace Kamala Harris in the Senate, or did someone already replace her? Yes, we do know. I forget the person's name. Alex Padilla. That's who it is. Since I'm not from California, I don't know all that much about him. But I believe he obviously worked in government in California. So California Secretary of State, that's who is replacing him, or replacing her. So California Secretary of State Alex Padilla will succeed Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. So there you go. Let's see if we get a picture of him. This guy here. So that is who is replacing Kamala Harris. My understanding, his positions are incredibly moderate. Gavin Newsom is not a good person. I think that's clear. There should be, I mean, ultimately, he's going to face a challenge at some point. But Barbara Lee would have been an obvious choice here. Ro Khanna, another obvious choice here. But this is instead who you get. Comrade Lavender says, David, you look like a Disney Prince lumberjack. And I mean that in the best way possible. Thank you, I think. Hoping Bernie changes Biden's mind, says Samantha Stevens. It's Padilla. Alex Padilla. All right, Alex Padilla. Harry says we need to tell Republicans that policing the world allows other countries to give their citizens free college. Policing the world allows other countries to give their citizens free college, free healthcare, and housing. They'll quickly want to defend the military. Here's a question. Super chat comes in. Jeremy Driscoll says, the beautiful thing about paying for healthcare through your taxes is that you only pay what you can afford, assuming you have a reasonably progressive tax structure. Yes. Ours isn't as good as it should be, for sure. Their tax on the wealthy in Canada is nowhere near where it should be. That said, yes. I mean, basically, if you are out of a job, you still have healthcare coverage. So, or if you're self-employed, I have healthcare coverage as somebody who is self-employed. So yeah, big benefits there. At the same time, if I'm talking to other Canadians, there are serious issues we have with our healthcare system in terms of it not going far enough. Dental care is not covered in our healthcare system. Pharmacare is not covered in our healthcare system. It is partly subsidized for the most part. I mean, even as somebody who is self-employed, when I've had to pay for prescriptions, it's been very little. Now, that changes, of course, depending on what you're getting. Insulin is going to be more expensive than anything that I've ever had to purchase. But for the most part, the cost of pharmacare is less in Canada than the U.S. Insulin, as the example, costs 10 times more in the U.S. than it does in Canada. That said, we should still have pharmacare covered in Canada. We should still have dental care covered, especially in Canada. I don't know how dental care isn't part of healthcare. Like it seems like a no-brainer there, but no, we still got to struggle to get dental care. So I got to pay for that separately. As somebody who has not had, I have not been to the dentist since I had a corporate job, I should say a marketing job. So since I worked for somebody else, I have not gone to the dentist. Now, I guess I could go and just pay out of pocket, but I have not. So that's another issue with not having healthcare coverage. Is it if you feel like you should maybe see the doctor and catch some issues early, not having healthcare covered impacts your interest to go see a doctor earlier than you would otherwise. So this is why another issue with the current American system is you end up having to pay a lot more through healthcare because a lot of it is end of life stuff, like late stage cancer. Somebody finally goes and finds out, oh, they have late stage cancer. Now it's the cost to address that is a lot more than, apart from the human cost, the economic cost or the financial cost is a lot more to address and take care of somebody with late stage cancer than if you caught that early. So that's another issue with the current private system is people are just discouraged from going to see their doctors early. Someone says, please don't neglect your dental health. I don't. I brush twice a day. I have an electric toothbrush. I will say I should floss more. I don't floss all that often. I hate flossing. It takes too much time. But I've never had a cavity in my life. So for the most part, I think I've done pretty good when it comes to my teeth. But I'm lucky in that sense for sure. All right. This is a good time. Thank you all for showing up. What is this about?
Jobs and opportunities for our people while contributing to democracy, peace, and security at home and around the world.
This is Trudeau fighting for the Keystone XL pipeline. Okay. I discussed that a couple days ago. All right. Thank you all for showing up. Maybe I'll do a video on something later. I don't know. Or maybe this is just the video of the day. But thank you all for coming, and see you next time. Good. Bye.